Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Welcome to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I'm Brian and I'm here with Kayla.
Hello.
We're both in our houses.
In our bubbles.
Yes, in our bubbles. This is, I don't know which day we are on. Of lockdown. I think this is the third week here in New Zealand that we are in lockdown in our houses. We are continuing the podcast through this situation and just doing everything more online. And we thought to come in to talk a little bit about our experiences through this period, because both of us were in a completely different situation, but as well to talk a little bit about the unknown. And that's going to be the main topic for this podcast. So the first thing is, how are you, Kay?
I'm good, thank you. I am in the camp of parents, so not too much has changed for me in terms of lockdown. But we're good. Little man is asleep and enjoying the nice sunshine, and it's been cool. So no, lockdown hasn't been any huge adjustment to my life. I actually really resonated with that meme that said that the two faces, and it said when you find out your normal life is called lockdown. That's kind of me. But no, it will be good to be able to take him out for some more adventures and things. But no, doing pretty good. Yeah. Excited about this topic, definitely. Because we're all kind of in it already, aren't we? Not to say that we're not always in it, because we are. But I guess it feels like you're in it more, the unknown more, when there's an element of fear attached, right? Because we are in the unknown every day, but the everyday doesn't, because everything is new and unfolding. It hasn't happened before, but it's not scary. But when there seems to be this this kind of subtle layer of fear, which makes it more of a topic at the moment, I guess.
Yes. And I think that, like, as you just mentioned, I think that what this time is doing for a lot of different topics or themes in our life in general, this is bringing a lot into the forefront. So it's like, I've been talking lately with my family and some friends, and in conversations, it's sometimes people realizing there's inequality, or there's people dying, or there's this is an issue or that's an issue, and now seeing that in some places that worked stopped for a moment. Now they can see the sky, and it's like, or they can see the mountains that are behind all of that fog or whatever, and it's like that was there before. It's just that we were so busy, or most of us were so busy, that we weren't noticing it. And I think that the same as you just mentioned with the unknown, like life is unknown. Like every single moment of our life, as much as we are the ones that we plan our life, and like the 5-year, 10-year plan or whatever, still life is unknown. Like, I don't think that anyone was predicting that this was going to happen. So
how could you?
Like a 1-year plan or 5-year plan or whatever. I don't think that they plan like, oh, okay, there's going to be the coronavirus and we're all going to be in lockdown and everything is going to stop, and but as you mentioned, this time is bringing it to a whole new level for a lot of people, and I think that, like, in a sense, like, we are privileged. We are living in a country that, like, not only most people living houses. There's, as you can see behind you, there's some nature. People, a lot of people live near nature. A lot of people have that capacity of going out for a walk just a few minutes away from their house, and you're in a beautiful space. And we're able to get a subsidy from the government. Like, we have all of these positive things that are quite different than a lot of other places. So, and also, like, I mean, I as a single person, like, I don't have any responsibilities. I've been talking like with you or with other people, and it's like people that have kids in their houses, like, it's a completely different experience than me. That, like, I'm just, I'm doing a little bit of work on the computer, I'm doing some planning, but the rest of them, like, I'm meditating, I'm doing online courses, I'm like
I'm so
doing all of these
envious.
things.
I mean, you've talked about it before, and I think all of us could imagine, when you get to a point of frustration with whatever system, and you think, imagine if everything could just stop. Why can't everything just stop? I know I've reached that point from a mental health perspective when I was at uni, and I just felt like the world was moving so quickly, and it felt to me like everybody knew where they were going and why they were going there and what they were doing, and I was unsure. And I remember I wrote it in my journal, and it was like, I just want the whole world to just stop, just stop, and let me just catch up, like just catch my breath, and this period, like, that has basically happened, apart from the essential workers, which just like is a whole nother level, a whole nother story of gratitude and things. But apart from them, or maybe parents, so many of the world, so many people in the world are having an opportunity to just stop and reset. And I think I'm envious to, that I can't just do that with a child, but I'm so excited for what comes. And it's funny, like you just said, the unknown is a permanent phenomenon. Like, what time is it now? Say 2 p.m. on the 18th of April has never happened before. So like, anything could happen at 2:01, whatever. But this whole period is like, I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, you were saying, like, that kind of initial layer of just starting to know the things that maybe others knew already around you, like actually just having the opportunity to stop and breathe and open your eyes and see things that have always been there. So like you said, weren't actually unknown, but were unknown to you because of the busyness and the distraction and all of that. So that layer is like, and you hear so many stories, like the birds, everybody's talking about the bird life in Auckland, and the question of whether there is actually more birds or whether we're actually just hearing the birds that were always there. So there's like that kind of initial level of just actually seeing what's around you, and then all the way through to this extreme of what the fuck does the world look like on the other side of this. And I guess you've got an option, don't you? You can either put your head in the sand, kind of just focus on yourself and get what you're given, and just see what unfolds. Or you can kind of get on the wave of this collective change and actually be a part of what the new way, I think it's been called, but like the new world, what it could actually look like.
And I think that it's a very interesting thing, because the unknown is most of life. Like, most of our lives is the unknown. Most of what we know is small compared to the big picture. And I know this, like, from my own experience and from my practices, and being able to study and to practice quite deeply, like almost a decade ago when I was living in the Buddhist retreat center, to be able to understand my experience of what I know and my experience of that which I don't know. And knowing that first step is that when I realize this is what I know, and I know that I don't know a lot of other stuff. And then it's like, and what is that other thing? But one of the main things with the unknown, like for me is the potential,
Mm.
because there's an openness in that unknown, and it's, where am I coming from to this space? Am I coming from a place of openness and curiosity, or am I coming to the unknown from a place of fear and like on all like small? And if I'm going like that, which is mostly what I've tried to do in my life, to the unknown, it's like, okay, like I don't know what this is, but I'm going to be open to that, because that is the possibility of life.
Mm.
And,
Mm.
and life is so much bigger than what I believe that it is. Like, and this time it's like, okay, like the future, like it's unknown now. What's going to be that new normal or the new way after this? It's like, it's unknown now. So it's, can I be open to that? And how can I be in relationship to that? How can I be now? And how can I prepare and create that new that is coming?
Yeah, that's one of the kind of the core things I've been playing with in my head at the moment, is this idea that, well, it's not an idea, I mean, it's becoming science slowly, but an idea, certainly an idea in spirituality, that we co-create.
Mm-hmm.
This is not we are not separate from the world. It's not me and my little body in my little house, and I'm separate from you and your little body and your little house. The idea that like we are all this one thing, and everything around us is basically a creation of each one of us as an individual. And so, like you say, going into the unknown, we've got the old sort of survival, tribal, primal system in our bodies that is, of course, going to approach with fear. And that's good, that serves us. But then, yeah, like you say, that possibility of just the enormity of it, I don't think any of us can really fathom. And it's interesting, you know, like you said, the proportion of what we know to what we don't know is so enormous. But that it's mirrored in so many ways in our world. Like, for example, what I know that my day is going to be like versus what I don't know, what I can see of my body versus what, like, the energy in my body, or even the internalness of my body. When you look at like an atom, what is it, 0.000, how many zeros, 1 is the matter versus the space of an atom, which is basically what we're all made up of. The universe, you know, the planet versus. So there's so many examples of where the known or the matter is so tiny compared to the unknown. And in nature, it kind of just plays out for the best, right? Because there's no fear, there's no ego, there's no like, my tree needs to be more green than your tree. And it's just like this total openness to adapting and the beauty. And then humans are like, this, we seem to have this kind of block. And I think it's partly this inherent tribal nature that we have, that we're evolving out of. And then partly a lot of response to the systems and the ways of life that we've created in the last essentially 100 years, where we've just really gone a little bit off track from what our natural state might be. But that expansiveness, I share that with you in terms of excitement. Ever since the coronavirus sort of came onto our radar, my biggest fear was that we wouldn't get that, or that like the world wouldn't see this as an opportunity. And now, I don't know, we're kind of just into it, aren't we? I mean, it's too early to tell, but I'd love to know. I mean, I would, imagine if we could just poll everybody right now in the world and find out who's excited, who feels like they can approach this next month, 6 months, year, 10 years, you know, who can approach that with openness and expansiveness and breathe into it, and who's feeling like, holy shit, the rug has been pulled out from underneath me and I'm shitting myself. I want to go back to how it was. I wish this never happened. Why can't we just go back to December, November last year? And I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Actually, sorry, Brian. If anyone, like, if you're listening and you know which camp you're in, drop in the comments. Like, let us know how you're feeling. Are you despite, you know, the small fears of like, well, I'd better stay in my bubble because if I don't, I might catch it and then I might give it to my grandma and blah, blah, blah. Those little fears, like they're there, and that's living with a set of rules that work and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah. So
and
not
safety.
that. Yes, exactly. But if you're feeling that expansiveness, we would just love to hear. I'd love to
Yes.
hear. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I was actually talking earlier with my mom about there is the like, and I mean, with my mom I talk about a lot of stuff that most of it I don't share, but we were talking about like from a three-dimensional physical reality point of view. We all have these different circumstances now, and some people, as I said at the beginning of this episode, like some people are in a very quote unquote good situation, some people in a more challenging situation. And we were talking earlier about how from expanding that view to like another higher or different perspective or dimension, we're all always given the circumstances of what we need to learn. And whether we are in a more challenging and shitty situation or quite a nice situation, we are all given what we need to work with, what we are able to handle, and what we need to learn. So one of the things with this situation, which is also unknown, is asking ourselves what what is it that I need to learn right now? Like, what about my circumstances? Anything that is rocking, my boat? Like, what is that trying to tell me about my experience? Because for some people, it is like perhaps triggering something about like emotionally, or triggering something about like our finances, or the way that we've been living our life, or like how we've been relating to other people. Like the possibility that a lot of people are having now, that they are able to connect with their families much more than usual. Like that is a huge change. And being able to understand that, like essential workers, like how important essential workers are. And also, where are we putting our attention now? Because we all have different circumstances, but where are we putting our attention, and where are we allowing? I talk a lot about surrendering, and surrendering for me is a big part of the unknown, because the unknown is unknown. I don't know it. So I need to be open and surrender. But this is not like a blind surrendering. This is a surrendering to what's coming. But as you said before, like this is a co-creation. Like I need to like do my part. And whatever we have as society, circumstances, as civilization, like this is all like from that co-creation part. But that doesn't mean that each individual like has a conscious participation into that consciousness. Like I might all the time be like positive and be like about like thinking about sustainability and the climate and animals and this and that, and like I'm still part of the like overall consciousness. And on the overall consciousness there's a lot of fear. The vibration is coming from a different perspective. So how can we allow ourselves to go into that unknown and to surrender and to start to co-create more consciously that new? And I think yes, this is an amazing opportunity, because we don't know what's going, like I mean, I don't even know, like going from to a smaller perspective, I don't even know if next week that we are supposed to come to the end of the 4-week lockdown here in New Zealand, I don't know if that like if next week we're moving to another like level, or if we're continuing in the same way. Like even that is unknown. So if that is an unknown, what about the big unknown of how is life going to look like afterwards? Like, is the financial system going to change completely? I have no idea.
Or the
I
working system.
I hope so, but
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's also, what's also something that I've been thinking about is the idea, like you started to talk about the collective consciousness, and whether you're conscious or unconscious or subconsciously thinking, you're already plugged into that. And I think we all have different access points, like you say. Maybe you're focused on climate change, or maybe you're focused on something else. Wherever your thoughts are directed, to me, is your access point into that big thing. So the times that we're going through now, where we're feeling the most pain, or maybe the things that we're missing the most, or maybe the things that we are clinging to, they're all really interesting signposts for us, and really in really good ways of getting to know who we are, what kind of archetypal patterns we're plugged into, and then which ones can we shift, and what, or just even looking at them, how do I feel about, say, sport, for example? Am I caring that there's no sport on, or am I really missing it, or I don't even notice? Does that mean I'm plugged into, like, what does that mean for me, and what does that mean about who I am? And just such a really interesting time to look at those access points into the collective, and then take responsibility for them. Because I hear what you're saying about surrender, and I think about that a lot. Talk about that a lot with clients, and I also just I use the word trust in deep connection with that, because you have to trust that whatever is coming from, not from us. Yes, we co-create, but we co-create as a whole. So it's not like a personal thing, like I ask for this, I get this. So we're kind of going to get what we're given, but we need to, get involved with the creation of that, and then trust that whatever that is what we need from that bigger level, like a planetary level, an evolutionary level. It's not like, oh, well, Brian needs a different financial system, so it's like, what does the planet need? What does the whole thing need? Like, there's been different periods in history, obviously, where big events have shaped who we are, and I feel like this is obviously one of them. And to me, it feels like, because even the fact that we're talking about the unknown and where that even comes from, to me, this is a big spiritual shift that will, I don't know, I just feel really excited about it. I can't even remember what I was talking about, but the trust thing. And I also, you made me think about a video that I made recently about a way to think about it. If you're someone who's a bit scared of the unknown, and you know it's the unknown, but you don't really know how to approach it. I don't think I've talked about this in a previous podcast, so I'm just going to quickly go over it. If you imagine if you put your hands into like a bowl, and you imagine that you as an individual are putting your bowl out into the universe or the world, and you're sort of saying like, okay, unknown, like what's going to drop in for me? Is it going to be a new job? Is it going to be a new place? Is it going to be a new partner? Is it going to be a new financial system? Like, what does the world look like? And you kind of put your bowl out, and you're like, all right, drop it in. A lot of us will be like, yes, I'm excited for this, that, or the other. But behind that excitement is this like, oh my God, like, but please don't let it be like this or that, or like, fuck, please don't let it be like that last one, or, I think I want this, but I really hope I don't want that. And it's those other thoughts, in the background that are creeping into the bowl. And the way we line the bowl is, like, if you can call it a vibrational match, or if you're thinking about baking, think about the baking paper lining the bowl. Like, whatever you line your bowl with, and whatever we line the collective bowl with, is going to match what drops in. So we need to be really aware of what we're lining the bowl with. And I think that what I was just saying about those touch points and those areas that we're able to really think about and sit with and reflect on at the moment are good places to start when it comes to creating your lining, your bowl lining, and really being sure that what you're consciously putting out there as what you want is the same as what you are subconsciously, trying to really line up. So you really know, like, okay, drop it in, whatever comes, I trust that it's the right thing for me, and I'm excited about it. And it's got to be gray, doesn't it? It can't be black and white. It's got to be gray.
Yeah,
more than 50 shades, like
yeah.
an infinite amount of shades.
I think that, and as you're saying, like this is like, I mean, for anyone that doesn't work with like the teachings of like that are like, if you watch the movie or read the book of The Secret, this is like the manifesting. In essence, is part of that is like understanding that, yes, like from a point of view, I might be saying like to the world, like I'm ready to start dating. I'm ready like to put myself out there. I'm ready for someone to come into my life. And then like if I'm if at the same time that I'm putting that outside into the world, I'm putting the thoughts or the vibration as well, in that like I am not good enough, or like who's going to love me, or anything like that, then those are competing. And that's, as you said, like that lining. And it's the interesting thing around this time, because I've been like, I try not to spend that much time on social media, but because I work using social media, then I'm going to actually see some things. And I've been seeing how there's a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of news and articles that are coming from like a conspiracy theory like perspective. And even though I love that, because I love questioning. Like I love the like just questioning by itself. Like for me, one of my biggest practices is questioning, like not taking anything as it is, like questioning. And one of the key things that I think that for this moment, especially for anyone that is starting to awaken a little bit more to like a different consciousness or a different way of being, and anyone that has been on this process, is, even though like it's good to question and it's good to do that, what if there's like what if that happened, like what if someone created this, what if someone like is benefiting from this, what if, you know, like does that change anything really? Like I was listening to someone that like they were asked something around this, like they were talking about things from a completely spiritual perspective, and they were asked what did they think about, and I have no idea too much because I'm not following as many also those news, but they asked him like about Bill Gates and about the vaccines and a few things like that, and he said, I don't really care. Like if he said like if that is actually something that is happening, there's nothing that I can do about that. What I can do something about is keeping my vibration high, keeping my openness into the world, doing my work, and not getting like completely drawn and into this rabbit hole of all of these lower vibration thoughts, or this fear or negative thoughts. Like how is that helping me? How, because we are co-creating the world, like if I get myself into that vibration, into that train of thought, I'm also putting that into the world. So this is not about not questioning and not like thinking critically and not like understanding, like questioning that yes, the government might be taking advantage of people and people's freedoms. And this is not about not questioning. This is about how much of my attention and energy I'm putting into that, and how much I am allowing it, especially if I have the time, to just be and sitting and meditating and opening and allowing myself to go to that place of the unknown. Because for most of us, and this is one of the practices that we can all do, let's just sitting and going to the unknown in a very specific way is, who am I? Like that question for me, that is a key question, is who am I? And seeing like what comes into that openness, because nobody knows who they are. So like just allowing ourselves to understand that there's a lot happening in this moment, And where we put our attention and intention, the energy is going to flow there. So, like, where do you want to put your attention, and where do you want the energy to go to?
Yeah, there's I was just talking about content that you're consuming. I've also been consuming. I've been listening a lot to a woman speaking about how the difference between what's happening now in terms of spirituality versus what's been happening in terms of religion. And I guess if you think about the unknown, the ultimate unknown is what happens when we die, right? Like the biggest unknown in our whole life, that's probably the most thought about or studied over time, is like, what happens when we die? Why are we here? What happens when we die? And she talks about the fact that, centuries ago when we started religions, that provided an answer. It provided a known about the unknown. It was like a belief that came from outside of yourself. It came through a religion, and it was able, you could apply it to yourself, and you could join in community, and you could align with others in this kind of shared belief that this religion had an idea about what happened after you died. And there was obviously lots of different 3 or 4 main potentials, but we had this idea that if we kind of bought into this external idea, that we would have the ultimate answer. We could believe in an answer to the ultimate unknown. And now she talks about how sort of over time that has changed, and we've been kind of coming away from the church, pulling away from religion a little bit. And now I guess we're in a position where the idea of a God, or the idea of all the answers, are actually within us, to be found within each one of us, which potentially was the message the whole time. But I mean, the way it was delivered, and it created a bit of duality. And now I think that the general awareness is starting to become that it's within us to find. And if you can't be quiet and sit and listen and ask those open questions, if you can't even ask the question, how are you going to find the answer? And so I agree that, and we've been gifted the gift of time in lockdown, but whether we're in lockdown or not, I think that is such an important thing to be doing right now. Such an important thing. Less about physical fitness and getting out and making sure you're running every day and all these other incredible things that are going to uplift everybody, like the family time and all of that stuff. But we really need to take this opportunity to sit and ask ourselves those questions and connect and rediscover our intuition that has never left, but really connect with that, because I think that from that place we can get into the really authentic reasons of why do we care about this? What do we, how do we feel? How do we want to move forward? What do we want to line our bowl with? What exciting potentials could come from this unknown? What do I actually, how do I want to think about that, as opposed to being fed an idea from outside of ourselves?
And as I say, like this, and I think this from most traditions in the world, they talk about, like, the biggest thing is time in our lives. Like, we don't know how much time we'll have, like, because we don't know when is our last moment, and we cannot buy more time. Like, there's, like, you can have as much money or not money at all, you still have the same amount of time. Our relationship with time, related to death, as I said, which is a big unknown, our relationship with time, it's huge. And there is so much that most people are not aware of, and how much we can expand time and play with time, because time is not this linear thing. Time, like, we can experience so much inside of the 24 hours that we have in the day, depending on how open and our level of consciousness that we have. And I think that all the time, the more that we are open, the more that we understand that we don't know, the more that we listen, the more that we connect, because that connection, it's both inside and it's outside. the main issue with the outside for most of us is that the outside there's too much stimuli, and then we get caught up with that instead of being able to connect with that. That's why it's so important, like when we are outside, to go to nature. Because in nature, even though there's a lot, it's not like being in the middle of the busy city, like in the city center. If you go to nature and you sit like by a tree, you start connecting to that energy. You start connecting with the sky. You start connecting with the animals and the sounds and the wind, and like that is that connection. And in that connection, we create that interplay of energies from within and from without, because we are allowing all of that to come in, and we're allowing us to connect outside. And for a lot of people, then going in is super challenging, because going in, most of us didn't learn that when we were at school. We didn't learn it when we were kids. Like it's only a few people, like perhaps it's millions, but still it's few, that we were lucky enough to like either have parents or have our own practice and being able to take the time to go and meditate and do yoga or whatever it is, way of connecting inwardly. There's a way of doing the same outwardly that might be more accessible, but it requires us sometimes to not have that much stimuli. So, like, if you're able to, like, go outside and go to nature and do that, awesome. If you're not able, go in. Like, we have what we need. Like, that's always been there. And as you say, like, regardless of it, comes from a religious or spiritual perspective. It's like every religion comes from a spiritual place. Like it's just created more structures around like those beliefs, and then like some different people went that way and some people went that way. But the main thing, like I think that, because like I believe, like I think of myself as a spiritual person and not a religious person, but I still think that religious people, like there's that, and you talked about that trust, like there's that sense of trust and faith, and that for a lot of people, that is what allows them to be on that unknown and to trust that life is going to bring them what they need. So regardless of what perspective we're coming from, is how are we allowing ourselves to interact with that which is outside and within, and that which is unknown, and to be able to ride the waves of life, and to be able to say, you know, this this is an unprecedented thing that is happening, but this won't last. Like, I mean, it might last a few weeks, a few months, a few years. On a big perspective, this is nothing. It's just the same as, like, you know, with space. Like when we start, like if like sometimes I watch these videos that they start looking at someone and they start going out, and then you see the earth, and then you see the like the planets and the Milky Way, and then like you keep on going out, and it's like this small dot, and it's like that's where all of us are. It's like this, like on one sense we're insignificant, and on the other sense, like we're everything.
Everything.
The same with this time, like because this time is the only thing, like right now is the only thing that exists, like this moment now. But tomorrow, in next year, in 5 years, in 20 years, this is going to be, you know, like just a part of life. So how can we play with that dynamic of what is, and the possibility that also what it is, it's not the end of the world. Like it's not everything. It is everything and it's not everything. How can we play with that? And I think that is like for me one of the biggest things of my own practices. How can I maintain that balance of this present moment now, and what happened, what is coming, and how can I play with all of that, and be in all of that? And the more open that I am, the easier that it is to navigate.
Yeah, and I think like with a lot of kind of smaller decisions, say pre this sort of time, expectation becomes a big part of that. Expectations that we have put on ourselves or others, or just the way things should be. And I guess now expectations gave you something to cling to, gave you something to work towards, even though the goal is still to find expansiveness and to relinquish those expectations and to go into the unknown, to have maybe intentions but to not be attached. But now even expectation is kind of being taken away. And so it's very, very confronting for people who like control. And that's what I was sort of saying before about the grayness. If you live in a world where everything is black or white, and if you in the white, you live in the black, you swap, and there's this right or wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then now you don't have either. It's quite a scary time. And I think that in what we were just talking about, there's a lot of tools and ideas that people can take for coping through this time there. I mean, what you said about nature it's like this universal to do. Like it's an easy thing that everybody can do, but I don't know, for some reason a lot of us don't do it. And I think it's a nice reminder, and the way you put it was really beautiful in the sense of finding a less distracted and busy way to be in that in and out. And Eckhart Tolle talks about this a lot, to be in the outside and the inside at the same time, and find that nice balance. And another thing that I wanted to elaborate on with what you're saying is, that meditation that you're talking about and going in and connecting, it's not something that is inaccessible to anyone. It's there for everybody. And whether you meditate, or whether you surf, or whether you run, or whatever you do, the results and the potential for that expansion, that different perspective and that knowing and that flow is the same for everybody. And it's also, it doesn't come down to like whether you've done it before, or you've been doing it for 10 years, or today's the first day, or tomorrow. It's like, it's open, it's available to everyone. And as soon as you start committing to it, you just never know what kind of path it will take you on. And I think that relinquishing any expectations around what that path looks like for you is also important at this time, because your answers lie there. And if you're looking for something specific, like something black or white, and it's gray, you won't see it. You just need to go in however you do that, and just let go of everything and just see what comes.
Yeah, and I think that, and I don't want to get this time too much into this because I think that this is for another episode, that we can talk more about meditation. But there's so much so much preconception about what meditation is, and I think that for a lot of people is what prevents them from actually connecting, because they think meditation is a certain something, and perhaps what they know is some way of meditation and not what meditation is. So I think that this actually might be a good one for another episode, and to be able to elaborate. But being able, for me, coming back to the main topic of this episode, that is that unknown. What we can create in the unknown is endless. Like the unknown has all of the possibilities. There's in the Buddhist tradition, there's a topic that in English has been translated as emptiness, but I don't like that word emptiness, because that word emptiness is charged with a negativity and with a nothingness. Whereas when I started learning about the topic that as I learned it, it's called shunyata, and it's that understanding that it's that it's that nothingness, but everything is in there. It's the potentiality of everything. And I believe that, and I mean, life comes from that place. So if we are able to stay in that place of openness and potentiality, the possibilities are endless. So what are we wanting to create? Where are we coming from? Are we coming from that open space or from that closed space? And are we able to create what we want to create? And I'm actually like really interested for anyone that is listening. What is it that you would like the world to be? Like if you like, because I think that we have the opportunity now. Like if you had the chance to decide how does the world look after this period, what does that look like? Like just send us another comment and just let us know, because I'm really interested, because I think that a lot of people haven't even thought about that. Some people have, but most people are just going through like their situation now and haven't actually taken the time to say like, or to think, what do I want the world to look like? And I think that the more that we're open, the more that might come.
Yeah, and like you say, a lot of people, it's much easier to think about what you don't want. It's much easier to see something and go, I don't agree with that, or I don't like the way that's done, than it is to think, what do I agree with? How would I like to see it done? Very quick to judge and blame, and sometimes that's helpful to see what we don't want. It gets you closer to what you do want. But I think when we get to a place where we're sort of focusing on, I don't like that, I don't want it like that, and then you get these opportunities, that's when you have the example I said before about putting your bowl out and thinking that you're excited about, but then everything you're thinking about is what you don't want. So yeah, like you say, it's a really exciting opportunity to think about what we do want, because the more people on the planet that can be thinking positively about what might come, with the added expansiveness and openness to the unknown, the more potential we have to actually create it.
Yes. So like just to start getting towards the end of this episode, my suggestion, or one thing that I invite everyone to do, is embrace the unknown. Embrace that, because as again, the potential is incredible. So just allow yourself to go to that place and to sit with the unknown and to be with the unknown and to say hi to the unknown and see what comes from there. Yes, wonderful. So I think that this is all for this episode. We're going to be here on the next episode. We're here for anyone that needs to reach out. So if you need to reach out for whatever reason, if you want to share something, if you're going through something, just reach out to us. We're here for you.
So. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for listening, and good luck with what you're embracing.
Yes.
Please share. Like Brian said, we would love to hear from you. We would love to know what you're co-creating, but also know that we're here for support. So get in touch.
Wonderful. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ, so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.